So one last thing that I'd like to get into is what is the outlook for the industrial real estate sector? And we can talk about Toronto. We could talk about Canada as a whole. Like, where do you see us going in the next 3 to 5 years? That's a tough question.
So I guess, Canada as a whole, aside from, the current,
speak your mind.
Yeah. Who won the election currently? Like, obviously, if we had it the other way, we probably would have had a little bit more investment in oil, natural resources, a little less bureaucracy, a little bit more pro-business, I think. But these things, like, obviously would impact Canada one way or another. So I do think, regardless of who's in now, I do think it's going to benefit Canada as a whole if we get our act together from a trade perspective. Like, we are connected to the biggest machine in the world, and we do heavily rely on them economically. So I do think there's going to be some optimism once we get past all this trade tariff rhetoric. It's going to go away eventually.
Yeah.
And, from what we learned from COVID, like, I think, again, once we finally do get past all this, there's probably some optimism where, hey, nearshoring really is a thing. We got to sort our supply chain. You've got Canada down to Mexico essentially connected, right? Like, you can talk about, our accessibility to knowledge, all of our, our tech hubs. And then you go all the way down to Mexico. That's a population of 190 million people with, year-round sunshine. Like, I'm sure if things figured out down there, like, we could be quite the powerhouse North America wide if everyone just gets on the same page.
Average age 35, young country.
Mexico?
Yeah.
Huh. Good to know. And what's our average age?
I think we're
like high 40s or mid 40s.
Yeah, I think we're like at the tipping point. Like, I think millennials they're not past boomers yet, but
I think we should look that up.
Let's do a
50 something.
I think in the short run, we're just returning to the historical norms I mentioned. 41
and a half.
Okay. I thought it was high 40s. So no, I just think we're going back to the historical averages of what the market was before the pandemic in terms of overall demand absorption. And then we're going to see a normalization of rental rates. It's not going back to 2016 or 2017 or probably even 2019, but we're not going to ever see 30% growth again. And maybe I'll get clipped on this one time without a astronomical event.
Yeah, like we've got a big flight to quality right now.
Yeah.
You've got all this new product. Like Matt said earlier, we're like 15 million feet a year the last few years. So anybody with some real projections right now has the ability to just take down a solid Class A facility. And that's probably going to cover their growth. I think a big question mark or an asterisk to put right now is, what's Class C space? The entire world or market is operating on cubic feet now.
Yeah.
What's 70K at 24 foot clear?
That goes back to the return to norm where a Class A building at Center Ice, Main and Main, Brampton, Vaughan will lease higher than a B class and a C class. And Oakville and Burlington, I love those towns, will be less per square foot than Center Ice, Brampton. And if you're a tenant, you have the first time ever, and when I say ever, I mean in the last 5 years, the opportunity to choose a building based on your customer needs, your branding, your labor, and all these different things that go into that puzzle piece of doing an industrial deal versus just taking a building because they need it.